welcome back to Conversations with Real People. I am the Radical Individualist at Individualists Unite. You can see and hear and read all there is to know at individualistunite.substack.com. Before we go any farther, though, it's about time for another commercial. I haven't been selling any of my books lately, so I think it's about time to get them back out here. First one is Elysian Place, a family renovation. Before I was a popular podcast host, I was an architectural woodworker and did some pretty interesting projects. So this is our house, and it's a story of our renovation of the house. It's more of a picture book than an instruction manual or anything, but I think it's very interesting. People find it quite interesting. Also, trilogy. This is the story of the past, of three people who lived in the time of slavery. One had been kept as a slave, one had fought to free the slaves, and one was the daughter of a plantation owner. And there are three different perspectives on slavery and what was going on in the 19th century. It's very interesting. You will learn a lot from this. You will learn things that a lot of what you thought you knew is wrong, and you'll find out things you had no idea about. So if you really want to understand what the hell was going on, try reading this. It's not the only thing you can read, but it's one of the things you can read to become much more informed about how this all really came to be and what we've been doing about it since. And finally, we have 2084. If trilogy was about the past, this is about the future. You certainly have heard of, and I hope you've read 1984. This is not quite the same thing. This is a book about a person, a novel I should say, about a person who decides he's not going to accept the way it is, and he fights it, but he fights it intelligently and makes it all work out so they all live happily ever after. Right? Wrong? No. But he works at it, and he is working at it, and he is making things better for people with minds of their own who want to have their own life on their own terms. So to me, that's a happy ending. So 2084, The Reawakening. So much for the commercials. We're going to do Sam Part 2A. Sam has been on before, so now he's on again. I split this into two sections, so A and B, 2A and 2B, because this first section is all about money, and I don't know if you really want to watch something about money, right? Of course. Just kidding. You probably do care about money, but you may not want to hear all about Bitcoin and digital dollars and so forth. It's worth knowing, but that's up to you to decide how much you care about this. Just keep in mind one thing I keep stressing: money is not real. It's in our heads. People seem to treat money like it's some real thing, like growing a corn crop, and after a while you harvest the corn. Well, you don't really grow money. It is not real. Never forget that. And if you want to know a little more about that, then by all means, watch episode 2A with Sam. Otherwise, we'll see you at 2B. Thanks. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Conversations with Real People at Individualists Unite. I am the Radical Individualist, known to some people as Chip. We're here today with Sam, who has been on here before, has previously confirmed that he is a real person. So I think we can just go ahead and continue from there. So Sam, thank you for coming.
Always a pleasure, Chip.
And we did, we'll talk about whatever comes up, but you're kind of a money and finance and investment guy, and I still don't get Bitcoin, and now we've got stablecoin, which maybe has more, you tell me, more validity, more governmental financial support than Bitcoin. I don't know. I don't get any of it. You tell me.
Well, you're right. Bitcoin is an entirely speculative asset in quotation marks. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you would probably agree with the notion that Bitcoin, what is it? I can't see it. I can't feel it. It's just a digital representation of something out there on the great world of Google. Mm-hmm. So asset, I say in quotation marks, because really what utility does it bring? Some say it's a hedge against inflation. it's not like gold, which is a true hedge against inflation. Gold has inherent value, not only as a currency historically, but also as, a method of developing advanced manufacturing components as a
Yeah, it is real
superconductor.
actual uses. Yeah,
It has
yeah.
actual uses.
Yeah.
Bitcoin, it has technically hedged against inflation, only because of the sheer speculation. Now, the one thing that the Bitcoiners do have on their side is an exponentially decreasing supply of Bitcoin. So if demand, it's essentially programmed into the code that is Bitcoin, that people mine the Bitcoin, and mining is essentially a process, how I understand it, of solving essentially riddles or code puzzles, and this creates a Bitcoin. And obviously, if you make a Bitcoin, you mine a Bitcoin, and it's worth $100,000 a coin, well, minus all the energy it takes to create the Bitcoin, you got $100,000 there.
Yeah.
But so if the demand for Bitcoin is inelastic, regardless of the actual value in the real world that we would probably hone in on for Bitcoin, and the supply continues to dwindle by the nature of its program, the value should, in essence, go up. Now, should people go out and buy Bitcoin? I'm not one to tell you people what to do with their money. I may or may not do so myself. Stablecoins, on the other hand, are a very interesting concept of the government, which essentially says, okay, all of these people in the world, primarily Americans, but the world, considering we are the reserve currency, they want to buy all of these digital assets and cryptocurrencies and this and that. But they can't take their dollar and put it into their USB port and then buy their thing. So they've created what's called a stablecoin. A stablecoin is essentially a digital medium of exchange that is a dollar for dollar equivalent. So a USD coin, USDC, USDT, these are the last letter in the sequence there is whoever the issuer is. USDC is a company called Circle, USDT is a company called Tether, and these issuers essentially, they create these USD tokens, and customers like you and I can use these tokens to go buy crypto and digital assets. And then when we want to sell those digital assets, we can convert it easily back into this digital medium, which is stablecoins. The interesting thing about stablecoins, through the most recent legislation, is that the issuers themselves have to have $1 per stablecoin, which is a lot different. If you think about it like a bank, this is a lot different than the fractional reserve banking system that we currently have, where a bank can loan out way more money than they currently have in the vault, let's say. So I believe the government, the current administration and Congress really wanted to push this through to tap into all of those dollars that are held on the web, let's say, and all the issuers who needed guidance, and by way of legislation, by taking this rigid system of the dollar for dollar, the dollar equivalent per coin can also be treasury notes. So in essence, I believe what the administration is thinking, and the Treasury specifically, is that they're going to drive up the demand massively, because if you're an issuer and you're essentially providing all these stable coins.
Oops. Keep going. I'll get this shut off.
What's the purpose of having just a dollar in the bank where you're not currently not making anything on the dollar because your dollar isn't inflating in value? You're technically losing something. Why wouldn't you just have treasury notes? Because not only are your customers using the stable coins and you get a percentage on like a banking transaction, but you can take those dollars that they exchange, put them in treasuries that are highly liquid, and earn a yield on it. So it's essentially, they're hoping to drive up this demand for treasuries this way, which will essentially lower the supply of treasuries available, therefore driving down the yield, making the U.S. borrowing costs a lot less.
Okay. Yeah, I know a lot of what you say, but not that well. So, yeah, Treasury notes, say a little bit about that, because I know of them. I am not a financial expert. Because I know the more demand there is for them, the interest rate goes down. Is that right?
Yeah, so assuming a stable supply of Treasury notes, essentially, and I was asked this at a family dinner the other night, Sam, why does the government issue Treasury notes? Well, as you know, and I'm sure your audience knows, the government collects $4 trillion a year in tax income. Primarily income taxes, but other taxes as well. Currently, as a benchmark, let's take the 2024 numbers. The government spends $6 trillion in change, but let's just say $6 trillion.
Mm-hmm.
So in essence, they're overspending by $2 trillion, and they have to, this is what's referred to as the deficit, and as they spend more and more each year, they have a growing deficit. This deficit compounds into what we know as the national debt, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the national debt is also a major driver of the deficit, because as the debt grows, we have an interest expense as a country on that debt, and that interest expense is vis-a-vis Treasury notes. So it's a circular head of the...
Yeah, and before we go any farther, I think the illustration I'm going to give, and you tell me how well I hit, because everybody experiences in their own life, whether they're just a person by themselves or a family, they've got income and they've got expense. Mm-hmm. The idea is you have more income than expense, so you're putting money in the bank or wherever you want to put your money. But sometimes it works the other way and you're spending more money than you're making and you're running up debt. So what do? How can you pay bills with money you don't have? You've got a credit card, so you put it on the credit card. The credit card balance runs up, that's more and more debt, and you're paying interest on it. And because you're running up your debt and paying more and more interest, that makes it more and more difficult to balance your income versus expense, so it just multiplies on itself. Some people are very unfortunately aware of how bad it could get, and they can't get out from under, except to maybe just declare bankruptcy or something. But and I think of perhaps college students or other people that are just a little maybe too unsophisticated. It's better today, I think. They aren't. I mean, I used to get credit cards in the mail, perfectly good active credit cards would just show up. I didn't apply for one. It's better than that today in the sense that they don't just hand them out. But the point is, you get a credit card and I'm having trouble paying my bills and I can't buy anything that I want because I just have to pay the bills. And a credit card shows up with a $2,000 balance. All of a sudden you're rich, right? And they spend the money, and that's more debt and more payments that have to be made. And a lot of people don't get it. To me, I watch what the federal government's doing, and you just add a bunch of zeros to the end of what individual people are doing, and it's really the same thing. Am I right or wrong?
Absolutely. And the hard part is that there's a perverse incentive on the government's behalf, because they've essentially gotten them as a collective, the government has gotten a credit card that says American taxpayer on it. And they found that wow, we can spend this however we want, but the best way for them to spend it is to try to buy the votes of the people funding that card.
Mm-hmm.
And this poses a serious problem for our republic, which is, okay, how long are people going to go on funding a mechanism that tries to bribe its own constituency, and eventually the bill comes due?
Mm-hmm.
And how does a nation essentially declare bankruptcy?
But it happens essentially.
It does happen, and it doesn't look very good.
Yeah, and nothing says the United States is as strong as it's been for all these years. Nothing says it can't fail.
That's right.
People just presume that no matter what it does, they can keep going, and that's certainly not true. Now, there was something that you were talking. I wanted to bring this up, but I forget what. It'll come to me. You go ahead if you have something.
So one other thing with the cryptocurrencies that's primarily the stable coins. There are investment grade cryptocurrencies.
Okay.
And these are essentially currencies that have deemed to be good enough for registered investment advisors essentially to put their clients in.
Mm-hmm.
And this is opening up a huge door for the world to, let me step back for a minute. So cryptocurrencies themselves were founded on a fundamental idea of a decentralized ledger. Okay? So this ledger essentially is self-maintaining, and it's highly secure because all individuals participating on the ledger, essentially by participating, they enable the security of the ledger. So what's going on now is a lot of people are starting to represent ownership interests in real assets on these digital ledgers.
Okay,
So-
you confuse me. We say real assets,
Yes.
pretend money. I'm not connecting
Right.
it.
So this ties back into the stablecoin thing.
Yeah.
So now we have, so say Chip owns an apartment building.
Mm.
It's worth, you bought it for $100,000, let's say. Probably a little low for this market.
Yeah.
Say it's a
I
100,000.
bought a closet for $100,000.
Yeah. So you have this asset. It's an apartment building. It creates rental income. It distributes rental income to the people that own it. You, as the person that owns this property, this asset, you can go on to certain platforms and digitally represent your ownership and create fractional interests in this actual asset. Meaning, instead of having a partner come in and say, okay, Chip, I want to split this with you, I'll give you $50,000.
Mm-hmm.
You can actually take $50,000 worth of that equity, digitize it essentially, have those shares or ownership interests represented on the blockchain. Blockchain is the digital ledger, and people can buy it with US dollar currency, USDC or
Okay.
USDTs.
Okay, now let's leave stablecoin out of this just
Okay.
to simplify and see if this still works. Okay, I want to sell an ownership stake in my apartment building, $50,000 worth,
Mhm.
which, I could walk up to you and say, hey, Sam, you want to buy half of my apartment? That's
Mhm.
simple enough. I could put an ad in the paper, I guess, I can go to the bank and say, would you, loan me $50,000 with this equity? And I guess, and maybe they do this, apart from stablecoin, there might be a market out there. I know at a high level there is, but as far as just a guy,
Yeah.
say, hey, half of my interest in this apartment building is available, for sale as shares, I guess, however they would do it. And you get the money if anybody feels like buying them. Am I right so far? Without making it any more complex than that, can you really do that online? Is there any place you can just say, hey, I own this, I have this equity and it's for sale or a loan, whatever? Is there any place you just put that out in the cloud and some people might actually respond to it? Or
Yeah, so the process is more complicated. So you have to go essentially through a type of digital security service to have these ownership interests issued. Now the thing with this is, there's different types of partnership relationships. Let's say you want to sell that $50,000 worth of equity on the street, let's say.
Yeah, okay.
And you only want to have people invest $10,000 intervals. So you can have a maximum of 5 other people invest, right? So the structure that you would have is a multi-member LLC where Chip is the managing member, the general partner, and all these other investors are limited partners. So taking your example, well, I want $50,000, how am I going to get it? I can go to the bank, I can get a loan out of my own equity. Well, that comes with a specific cost. You have an interest expense. It could be cheaper to go to someone else and say, hey, I'll split this with you for $50,000, or 5 other people at $10,000, and I'll give you X amount of dollars. Essentially, it's harder to get someone or 5 people or 1 person to take that $50,000 if you just put an ad out in the paper, versus if you actually put it out online, you have all your legal documents centralized and you distribute the money vis-a-vis all these specific.
Yeah, I can see, like, it's almost like Amazon, so much easier to buy and sell on Amazon than standing on a street corner trying to sell your CDs or something. So yeah, I get it's a convenience, but it's more of a convenience than a whole new thing. Am I right?
Convenience, but it's also the main point is higher liquidity. So there's more capital flowing into these specific products that would otherwise.
Again, just like Amazon. You know.
Exactly. Yeah. It's much easier, which means more money will flow. So that's the net benefit, and it allows all sorts of different projects and asset. Let's say you own a vault of gold, right? You take it to the bank. Your bank is your trust holder, and then you digitally represent shares of those gold reserves. Well, now you just took a bunch of cash in. You have your gold reserve that people own the interest in, and much more capital has flowed.
Okay.
And
yeah, and they have that. I mean, that's what
right.
What they have a name for, a gold exchange or a gold trust or a gold. What am I saying? What am I trying to say?
There are some. There's also more specifically ones, like I've described, that have actually digitally done this, and which also creates more convenience for the buyers who can.
Yeah, in other words, some people, if they're going to buy gold, they want freaking gold in their hand. Right. But you can buy gold and not have it in your hand.
And it could be more secure if you know it's held in a vault somewhere, and you can just hold your digital representation of your ownership. You wait 10 years, gold goes up 50% from then, and then you could sell it if you want to, or pass that digital representation on to your children or grandchildren. So
which is not unlike what money used to be when it was based on a gold standard.
Right.
That dollar bill represented this much gold, and at any moment you could trade that dollar in for whatever gold that would buy. But it would be consistent, am I right? So let's not do a dollar, let's do something a little more significant. Well, they had, again, this is getting historical, maybe you don't know, but they had silver certificates, which was basically dollar bill type things, but it meant you get this much silver if you turn it in. So if the value of that silver's gone up, then your piece of paper's gone up or down. So yeah. So in a sense, you're still talking about things that have always been going on. They're just modernizing it and making it more convenient.
Exactly.
Okay. So then, I'm still going with Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do that for a minute because that's, I guess that's the granddaddy of them all.
Sure.
Because I was not aware until you just now said it. I thought there's X number of Bitcoins and that's it. You're saying there can be more Bitcoins as time goes by?
So there is a set schedule for every day more Bitcoin is being created. Not full coins per se, but essentially every year more Bitcoin is being created.
Oh, I didn't even know that. Okay.
Yes. And so once, I'm not sure what the year is. I want to say 2035, but don't quote me on that.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of Bitcoin being created exponentially decreases.
Okay.
So again, this is what Bitcoin people really hearken on, which is, well, if people keep buying Bitcoin, the supply is only going to go down. So it's a no-brainer that it's going to go up in price.
Yeah.
So I might as well buy it.
Yeah.
Who's to say that the demand will be inelastic?
Yeah. I've always had a problem, and we've talked about this before. I made my living making real things, you know, and I go, there's nothing there, you know. I've always had a problem with that.
Yeah, I'm not the one to make the strongest argument for Bitcoin itself. But the people that would argue for Bitcoin, the Bitcoin bugs,
Mm-hmm.
they hearken on decreasing supply. There's clearly strong demand.
That I get.
And that it's a dollar alternative that is decentralized. So it's not controlled by, as you were alluding to.
It can't be manipulated.
It can't be manipulated.
That's huge.
By,
That's huge. Yeah.
By sovereign
Yeah.
issuers, as you were hinting at. When we were on the gold standard,
Mm-hmm.
our purchasing power was 100% more than it is now. And so this is kind of the appeal for Bitcoin, where the supply is only going down and people can't manipulate the value of it. So, and they can
Well, a central
spend
authority
it.
can't manipulate the value.
A central authority can't manipulate it, and they can essentially spend it like dollars. And I push back on that a little bit because, well, how are you really going to go spend your Bitcoin? Everywhere that's been tried, it hasn't really worked. But
Well, I wondered about that. I know maybe this is all just kind of caved in, but I know there were, I'll say Amazon, you tell me if I'm right or wrong, or if you even know. I think Amazon was or is taking Bitcoin. Am I right? No? Maybe not.
my wife gets on Amazon all the time, and she's never paid with Bitcoin yet.
Well, I think the question is how many people would do it if they could. But I know there were places who I guess, in theory, why not? I guess, except again, you're doing this with software. How do you? What even is the process?
Yeah.
But I mean, if you can put a credit card number online and buy something, why can't you put your Bitcoin number in, so to speak? I don't know what it is, but
Exactly.
seems like it would be the equivalent, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, there are ways to transfer securely to certain people via someone who's holding your Bitcoin or your personal storage. Another key driver for the demand for Bitcoin is the fact that it's very fast. So I can, Chip is in China right now, and he needs $1,000 because his credit card got denied.
Mm-hmm.
I can send you $1,000 right now. You'll have it instantly.
Mm-hmm. With Bitcoin.
With Bitcoin.
Okay.
And then you can exchange it there for a sovereign currency.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that's another appeal.
Okay.
But this also gets kind of solved through USDC, which can be sent
Okay, USDC
instantaneously.
is.
US dollar equivalent digital dollars.
Okay. So
Which is
digital
called a
dollar is
digital
trying to be an equivalent, the same idea as Bitcoin. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it solves for the same problem of, if you send a wire to somebody, let's say
Wire transfer.
wire transfer, it'll take a couple days to get somewhere, or an ACH transfer.
Because real people are looking at it and making sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
With USDCs, you can send it to somebody very quickly,
Yeah.
within minutes, let's say.
Yeah.
So this solves a latency issue that
Okay.
is present.
Again, it's not like it's a whole new thing. It's just a more convenient form of the old thing, kind of.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
So, great. Now, stablecoin. Tell me again, how is that different than a? I know you said, and I know that one-to-one equivalent between a real dollar and a stablecoin. And I'm going. And I guess from what you're saying, I'm beginning to catch on. The stablecoin is geared towards just what you said: move money now.
And also buy things that are on the digital marketplace. So this makes it easier for somebody in China, let's say, or somebody in California who wouldn't see your ad in the paper for your $50,000 worth of equity interest in your apartment building to be able to see it and buy it instantaneously. If they want to sell it, they can sell it on the open marketplace, which
Okay, so yeah, I could put an ad in a California paper and still get somebody to pay me 50 grand, but the chances are low, the inconvenience factor and so forth. But with a digital dollar, and with what we've talked about here, it's a few button pushes and we're good. So
exactly.
okay,
It essentially opens the American consumer up to multiple different avenues of productively using their dollars safely on the web.
I was just thinking, you say safely. Okay, I want to sell a 50% interest in my apartment building for $50,000, and we're going to make a lump sum or break it up into 10 chunks of 10,000. How does anybody know I'm not ripping them off?
Well, it depends on. There's always the possibility of fraud. I think in an instance like that, you would have recourse, because if you're, depending on the type of structure of the agreement, you would presumably have a lien on the house or some other type of personal guarantee by the issuer. So if you go bankrupt, they can come after your personal house and bank accounts and all your jewelry and all that gold.
Well,
But
that just
presumably it's every investment decision. If you buy Apple stock, how do you know you're not going to get screwed over tomorrow if the market tanks 20%? Well, you don't.
Yeah.
The real point is that it allows people to travel farther with their dollars.
So in real life, I'm not going to sell a $50,000 interest to a guy in California, probably, because he'll just put his money into something in California. And But in other words, that's in this day and age, that's just too little money to be worth getting excited about. But if I got a $50 million project and I'm trying to sell interests in it, well, that's enough money that some bankers and appraisers can get involved and certify yada 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 that it's worth that, and then it starts working out better.
When you're talking about massive projects in the tens of hundreds of millions, this provides much greater avenues for investors to participate.
Reliably, they can know what they're really buying.
Exactly. And on the point of the stable coin itself, because the person that gave you that stable coin has to have $1 per stable coin, that if the stable coin for whatever reason goes kaput, they still have $1. in reserves for you.
Okay.
So that's the
So
reliability.
and
of the
again, I'm
stablecoin.
hearing you say this is a convenience factor and not really an investment factor. Having a dollar stable
Correct.
coin or a dollar means nothing. Take your choice. It means
Correct.
nothing. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Well, this makes a little bit of sense. So everything we're talking about as far as this goes is more of a convenience factor than a way to, I don't know, advance an economy or whatever. But that very convenience might advance an economy.
That's the
but
idea.
Yeah, but okay. Because Lord knows, if it took any real effort to buy from Amazon, Amazon would go broke. But what I can do is push a button and it shows up at your door the next day. They sell a lot of stuff that way, yeah.
Yeah.
Imagine if you push the button, it doesn't show up for 2 weeks. You know, people might not buy so much. Who knows? But
I think you're onto something.
yeah, I gotta respect Jeff Bezos, because he invented that sucker. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
this other stuff is just adaptations of what, almost like what you're saying, adaptations of what already exists. But he invented something there that's really significant.
Absolutely.
So hats off to him. But yeah, getting back to what's an investment, because I remember what I was going to say, because every man, woman, and child in this country, if I remember right, pays $4,000 in interest on the national debt. Of course, they don't write a check for $4,000, but it's $4,000 worth of everything being more expensive because you're competing with the federal government for buying stuff. It's $4,000 worth of your taxes, and probably the average family pays in all the taxes that there are, when you think about it, $20,000, taking a wild guess, per year in taxes. And you're supposed to get $20,000 worth of something from governments for that. I'm not so sure about it.
Mm-hmm.
But if $4,000 of that $20,000 is just paying interest to whoever, so the government, instead of getting you $4,000 worth of something you could use, they're handing $4,000 over to people to pay back a loan, just like paying back the credit card that you spent too much money on.
Exactly.
Same idea, and I wish people would get that.
Yeah.
Because they think, oh, the rich people will pay. Well, rich people do pay more. It's $4,000 on average. Rich people pay more. Poor people, they pay less. But it gets to you one way or another, for sure.
Mhm.
So it ain't nothing.
Yeah, and in order to pay this credit card bill, they have to print dollars.
They devalue the dollar.
And then
Yeah.
it devalues it, so then you have to end up paying.
After you've already paid $20,000 in taxes, and I think on average income in the country is $60,000.
In the country,
Yeah.
I want to say it's closer to 50.
Okay. So 50 to
But
60.
there's-
I don't think 20,000 is way out of line. Maybe less. But I'm talking about, even if you rent, you're paying property tax because your landlord isn't paying it. You are.
Right.
He's just the intermediary. Or if you're in the home, you're paying it directly. But you got property tax, which is huge almost any place. Sales tax. Excise tax, income tax to city, state, and federal. It goes on and on and on. And I think 15 to 20,000 is not out of the question, just for an average amount of tax that an average family pays. So people need to kind of get a clue, you know. So, okay. Well, I get stablecoin. It's just interesting to me. We do have, because we have computers now, and they have had them a while, and people are just like computers make it easier to buy stuff online, and they're making it easier to just move money around online.
Mm-hmm.
Lord knows I pay most of my bills with a button push. I don't write a check. I rarely write a check anymore. When that's how you did it.
Exactly.
So it's a convenience factor. People have said, though, and again, maybe just political maneuvering, but people have said both the digital dollar and stable coin are like an insidious plot by the federal government to do something to screw us over. You don't think there's any of that in there?
I think there's definitely a possibility of that.
Okay, like?
Well, this would be straying into something more equivalent to the dollars that they print at the Federal Reserve are let's say they're 50 years from now or something, those dollars are represented fully online. Meaning everything there's no more cash.
Yeah.
Cash is already traceable. But if cash was solely held online in the dominion of the Federal Reserve, it would be fully traceable and fully controllable. So the people that worry about that type of regime taking place, I don't think their worries are misplaced.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because there are cash sales made occasionally that aren't entirely legal. The taxes don't necessarily get paid on it.
Right.
And with pure digital currency, it'd be very difficult to get around that. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, which reminded me of something which I've forgotten all over again.
And it would make seizing, let's say Chip owes $50,000 in taxes. And he has $50,000 that the Fed can see it. He hasn't paid his taxes. They can go in and immediately seize those dollars.
Yeah, yeah. Which they can do right now with regular money, but a person could hide money with cash.
Exactly.
That maybe they couldn't, yeah. Yeah, I get that.
It's a lot harder to send somebody down to Chip's house to take his money out of his vault and sell
Yeah,
his
especially
house.
if I forgot to tell them about it.
Exactly.
Yeah, so, I don't have any vault. It's hell to get old because it came and it went again. But
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily think of the stable coins necessarily as just a convenience factor. I think the primary, it's a double-edged sword. One being, since these issuers have to buy treasury bills, essentially, this plugs the hole to a degree on the amount of money the Fed has to print in order to sustain our economy, which in theory lowers inflation. Also, it increases productivity.
because how?
Because people can now go out and participate in functions, let's say the $50 million apartment complex, just as an example. That apartment complex gives people housing. It gives people that run it jobs. It gives the investors money. It creates more tax revenue. This is what...
But how is that different than a bank financing that?
Well, it decentralizes it. So it allows more...
Cuts out the middleman kind of thing.
It cuts out the middleman. Not that the banks wouldn't necessarily take part in it, but it does make it more competitive.
Yeah.
If the bank quotes you at 8% for a $50 million interest rate, let's say, but you can go out and viably finance this through equity investments at 6.5%. You're saving 1.5%, and all of these other people across the country, the world, let's say, can partake in this. This boosts our GDP and our productivity.
Well, that starts to sound good to me because I like worldwide.
Yeah.
Because on the one hand, I don't like the idea of new world order where there's people at the top pulling the strings all around the world. It scares the hell out of me. And I'm glad because they were moving that direction. They've been moving that direction for a century, and all of a sudden it caved in on them because it was just
so obvious.
that what do they call it? Pay no attention to the man behind the screen. Well, they pulled the screen, and there was the man. And we all went, "Holy shit!"
Exactly.
So so I like the idea that I can invest in an apartment building in Taiwan relatively easily or anywhere, and they can invest here and not go through a bank or whatever, not go through all these intermediaries that can not only take a piece of the action but control it.
Right.
Yeah.
It was much harder for Chip here in Cincinnati building his big, beautiful building to get financing from the people that Chip knows. But he goes out and he puts it online. It's all decentralized, it's secure, and people from all over the country and the world, let's say, can now participate. Chip is now much more productive with many more avenues for capital to flow.
Yeah, that I see. Because I've been involved in construction, as you well know, and I'm not the big guy who built $50 million buildings, but I did work on $50 million buildings, so
Sure.
I know how it all works. So yeah, I like that.
And when those guys that are paying you to build it or organize it can't get the funding, what happens?
Problem,
People lose their jobs.
Yeah.
People lose places to live or work.
Mhm.
This just creates more productivity vis-a-vis
Yeah.
capital convenience.
And maybe you do or maybe you don't avoid bubbles because I don't know if you do avoid them, but
Yeah, you do.
okay, because when all the money starts rushing into something and you say that something isn't worth the money that's going into it, what
Yeah.
happens when everybody figures that out? You know?
So the bubbles. Usually, when a bubble has a systemic effect, it's because institutions that collateralize them are overexposed. So currently, we've been using apartment buildings as an example. Let's just keep using it. So apartment buildings are considered commercial real estate, right?
Mhm.
Primarily, people get these financed through banks because it's a lot harder to go knock on doors if you are legally allowed to knock on a door, which is another problem.
Mhm.
If banks go and they're primarily the ones buying all of these, loaning all of this money, they're loaning dollars that you and I have deposited. What happens when a vast amount of their portfolio of loans defaults?
Mhm.
We have a problem going and getting our money. So what happens? The federal government has to bail them out.
Mhm.
They have to print a bunch of money, which devalues our dollars.
Mhm.
Hopefully we get them back, but now they're worth less. And so,
Yeah.
by decentralizing this to specific investors, potentially, this kind of decentralizes the risk to specific
Yeah.
individuals, not massive institutions that represent massive amounts of individuals.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds good in theory. I guess we'll find out how well it works. But, like I said, I like the idea of something like gold because there it is.
Mhm.
You know, buy it, sell it, save it. An ounce of gold today is an ounce of gold 100 years from now. But God knows what a dollar bill is 100 years from now, if it even exists. So yeah.
Pennies on the dollar.
Yeah. Well, it already is pennies on a dollar.
Even more pennies.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
decimal just
Yeah, yeah,
keeps moving to the right.
yeah. And as they say, that works for investors, not always, but on the long run, it works for investors. The people who get screwed over the devaluing of the dollar are folks who are living basically hand to mouth, and their raises don't keep up with the raises and what they have to pay for, so they're always behind. So
There's
nobody, when inflation happens, hourly wage earners are not the first one to get to see the increase in their wage. You know, they see the increase in their electric bill and their water bill and in their mortgage payments or rent
Exactly.
payments, but they don't see the increase in their pay until later on. So that lag hurts poorer people, absolutely.
Exactly. When productivity can't catch up
Yep,
and wages can't catch up because productivity is so much higher,
yep,
then they really feel the burden of inflation.
yep.
It's
Yeah, an equivalence that I assume some geniuses in government keep track of, but I wouldn't swear to it.
geniuses in government.
I'm sorry. Contradiction.
Sounds like an oxymoron.
Contradiction. Yeah, there you go. I was going to say contradiction of terms, but and again, I just love the history of manufacturing and productivity anywhere in the world, including this country. It's amazing, even in my lifetime, how much more a man hour can produce on average right now than it could when I was a teenager working on a factory as a summer job or something. I mean, my goodness.
Yeah.
And that's just my lifetime. You go back 200-300 years when people were making stuff by hand with no power. So it's just been a steady increase. If there were no more dollars than there were then dollars would be worth a boatload because it'd be a few dollars buying a lot of stuff now. So when you make more dollars than there is stuff, that's when you have inflation.
Exactly.
So the geniuses are supposed to keep track of that, but they don't. So, yeah.
Too many dollars chasing too few goods.
Yep. Yep. Exactly.
Exactly.
Yep.